Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is a donation reward from Venom0027, and this is something that I've been wanting to get to for a long time. This movie received insane critical praise. And not just critical praise, but just general audience praise. This movie did so exceptionally well. And it's been talked about. There's been fan art. There's been just all kinds of praise leveled for this movie that, of course, I was interested. But I knew I wanted to react to it. And so I was hoping someone would choose it as a donation reward because I never was able to find the time to get to it. I kept putting it off or getting to other things. I was just never able to find the time to, put it up there for me. And so I was hoping someone would donate for it and choose it. And finally, someone did. So there is actually some stuff I know about this movie going in. Obviously, just the general premise of the film. At least from a very general sense, I know that the family is called the Mitchells. I know that there is a machine uprising of sorts. And I know that there is queer representation in this. But I don't know, the full gist of the story and all. But I actually do know some behind-the-scenes stuff, I guess you could say. I guess you could call it that. Development stuff. This movie is created by Mike Rionda. I might be mispronouncing his name, and if I am, I apologize. It might be Rionda? I'm not sure. But he was a writer and director for Gravity Falls. And in fact, in this movie, Alex Hirsch is in it. I know that too. But Mike Rionda was tasked with creating this movie by Sony. He got assistance from the now really famous Lord and Miller, who are, behind the Lego movie and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So it's big names. And I believe this started, I want to say in 2015 when this all really got underway. But obviously it didn't come out till last year. So there was quite a long development process for this, 6 years. And with the amount of praise that this movie has received, I would say it's probably worth it. And the fact that this was, created, directed, and written by someone from Gravity Falls, with the creator of Gravity Falls also involved to a degree, even if just doing a voice. I mean, that's pretty promising. And Lord and Miller have been very hit or miss for me. I wasn't a fan of the Lego movie. But on the other hand, I was a massive fan of Into the Spider-Verse. It's tied for my favorite superhero movie of all time with No Way Home. Both Spider-Man movies, funny enough. It's too hard to decide which of the two I like more. So I'm just declaring them a tie and everything. But yeah, I'm definitely very excited and interested to see what this movie has in store, considering its popularity. And I'm really hoping it lives up to it. I've obviously seen what the animation and art style and all looks like, and it's not my favorite style, but I've only seen like very little of it. So seeing it within context and everything might change things. Um, I don't know. I'm fully willing to give it a shot, of course. I don't know who else is in this actor wise. I don't know if there's others that I know or whatnot. I just know Alex Hirsch does a voice in it. I don't even know like who his character is or anything. I just know that he's in it. So I don't know who else is in this. I don't know if there's any other names I'm gonna recognize. Possibly, but I'm definitely interested to see what all the hype is about. Now, with the basic premise, the very basic premise alone, just, machine uprising, a family having to fight against them while sticking together and all of that jazz. It's just like with the animation, it's not my favorite. I'm not huge into that kind of storyline, I guess. Um, it really has to be done well. Um, because Machine Uprising storylines can get really bad really quickly. The Terminator franchise is a great example of that. Started off really good and then went to shit. Yeah, the problem is you have to do it right. It has to be done in just the right way to really work, in my opinion. And obviously, that's just me. I know a lot more. I know there's a lot of people who are more into this kind of story archetype, whatever you want to call it. Um, but for me, it's just I, I'm not as into it as I could be. Um, I just feel that there's not a lot that really makes it that exciting or interesting. It's just, and most of the time, I feel like most of the time this type of story is done, it's not different enough from the last time, if that makes any sense. Like it all feels very samey to me. Like there's not enough variation in the idea. So maybe an animated uh, family movie that was supposed to be theatrical but ended up releasing on Netflix. Maybe this will do it for me. I don't know. But yeah, I'm definitely interested. Um, the crew working behind it definitely gives me some hope, but also allows me to keep my expectations withheld for the moment. I don't have low expectations, but I don't have high expectations either. I'm going in hopeful, as I do with everything, to be fair. But, just I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to completely give it a fair chance, but I don't know what I'm going to think about it. But we'll see. We'll see. So we're going to get this started, and I just also want to mention right before we do that I said in movie reactions last week that we might be going to do multiple movie reactions a week for the time being, and I think we are going to stick with that as long as we can. Maybe one week or here or there we might only be able to get to one movie just because of time constraints or whatever. But I'm thinking maybe until at least the week, until I go to TrotCon, basically. Until that week, I might continue doing, or trying to do at least 2 a week. Because we have with the June special we have going for donation rewards, we have a lot of movies to get through. So yeah, I mean, people are donating and they get 2 reactions, two rewards for each donation. So there's a lot to get through, and I'm not saying we have to like get through it all right away, but it's like I don't want to keep people waiting on their reactions forever. And if we only did one a week, they would be waiting forever for some of them, especially when I kind of just at this point pick and choose from the reaction pool I have. And I'll probably make a separate video on all of this too to discuss it in more detail. But just wanted to mention it here for all those watching. And in the meantime, let's get this going. So when the screen fades black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so finally have seen this movie, and I didn't really love it. I liked it very much even, but I would not go as far to say I loved it. And I will be upfront and honest with you. Part of the reason for that is personal, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But there were a couple things with this movie, and I wouldn't even call them necessarily issues with the film or its writing necessarily, but just personal things for me that kept me from really loving this as much as I could have. But it was fun. It was very fun. It was very enjoyable. It's something I would definitely watch again. And again, I very much liked it. But I just didn't love it. Honestly, so far that I can think of at least, of the Lord and Miller films I've seen, the only one that I've really loved has been Spider-Verse. But this one was obviously definitely better than Lego Movie. Again, I really didn't care for Lego Movie. But this one, I did like. It was really good. Again, just this other stuff. So let's just rip off that Band-Aid. Let's just get into that. So let's talk about my issues with this film first. And there's only a couple of them, and again, the big one is just a personal thing, but let's talk about like little, I guess, nitpicks, you could say. This movie was excessively predictable. And I've said before, and I say it again, predictability is not necessarily inherently bad. If a movie or a show or game or whatever is predictable but still delivers it in a very entertaining, fun way, then okay. But this movie was so exceptionally predictable that there's only one thing that surprised me. Outside of like little details like, oh, there's Furbies in this. Like, I wasn't expecting that, but that's not like a big like plot line thing. The only thing that surprised me was at the end when Pal was destroyed instead of turned. Instead of like redeemed, basically. That is the only thing that surprised me. Everything else in the movie, pretty much beat by beat, I could tell was going to happen. It was so easy to see coming. Nothing like surprised me. And again, while it was well enough done, it was so excessively predictable that it did kind of take away from it a little bit. But then the bigger issue for me, again, the personal thing, is that this movie is a little too idyllic and hopeful for me. And I know that sounds weird to say, but let me explain. This movie it does what a lot of animated movies do. It goes the route of least resistance. You oftentimes will not see an animated family movie where it doesn't end. Okay, I'm wording this weird. Pretty much every animated movie out there that you see is going to end in a happy reconciliation for any like family members that are at odds with each other. Things are going to always go well. Any kind of family movie like this, especially animated, that focuses on the issues between members of the family, it's always going to go well in the end. They're always going to find out, oh, we really do love each other. We're really trying, even though we're different and don't necessarily understand each other completely. and we still are going to show this kind of love, and we're just going to come together stronger than before in the end and be this perfect idyllic family. And it's like it's a personal thing for me because I connected with Katie in a lot of ways. Early on in this film, when we're getting introduced to the characters and everything, and we find out like Katie's this weirdo who's into stuff that her father doesn't understand. She's super passionate about it and wants to dedicate herself to it. It's like, okay, I'm there. That's me. I see myself in this character. And the father refusing to understand, refusing to accept it, even to the point of causing legitimate trouble and problems and trying to force his viewpoint on things on her. It is something I very heavily relate to because I've been in that situation. That's how my father is. He's forced a lot of his beliefs and ideologies on me. He refuses, not even just doesn't, but refuses to acknowledge or see my points of view on things, or he refuses to acknowledge my interests and stuff unless there's stuff that he also shares an interest in. And it's been one of the hardest things for me. And not because I still love him deep down. Not because of like any kind of like saccharine, hopeful message like that. But because I have to deal with that. And it's hard to have to deal with that. And I've tried to get out of it. I've tried to go away to escape that situation. And it would have worked, and unfortunately it didn't. That's the thing. Those 2 weeks when I lived in New Jersey for when I was going to move in and stay with a friend and his family and everything in New Jersey to get out of this situation and all, those were two of the most hopeful, exciting, happy days of my life, or weeks of my life. Because I was free from this pain I constantly felt. The pain that had driven me to a suicidal state in 2013. To where I attempted multiple times to kill myself. And almost would have succeeded. I'm not going to get into that entire story again because I've told it plenty of times on this channel. But for those who may be new for the channel or whatnot, just to put it in the most simple of terms, I discovered MLP and a specific reaction to a specific fan video that saved my life back in those days. On the day I was planning on doing something that would definitely have succeeded compared to previous suicide attempts. The point is, I related to her and I connected with her because it was hopeless. It was a situation that couldn't just be redeemed. And that's kind of how they were portraying it. But even at that point early in the film, I knew, obviously, this is a animated family film. It's not going to end that way. It's not going to end in a more realistic fashion that a lot of people would be able to connect to. And I'm not saying that the happy ending isn't realistic at all. I'm sure for some people it is, but for a lot of people, these kind of differences are not able to be reconciled. And they have to live with being separated from their families because of these, or even completely like having breakdowns and a lot of emotional painful issues because of it. Some still have to live with these family members who are like this. And it causes them to be suicidal. It causes them to constantly be afraid and in pain. And not everyone's just going to be able to fix that. And obviously this was portrayed through a very excessive circumstance with a robot apocalypse and all, but still. You can't just automatically say that things would work out that way. And even with the idea of like, oh, they're trying to push their ideologies and their beliefs and everything on you because they care about you and they just want what's best for you. It's like, no. Very often that's not the case. Very often they do it because they want you to be them. They want you to be a little copy of them, to follow in their footsteps, to make them feel better about their own life choices. It's a purely selfish thing. It's not something that it has like good intention behind it most of the time. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience here. I understand that may not be the experience that the writer here went through or other people out there. I understand that. I get that. But this is also why this idyllic kind of wrap up for this situation that I connected so hard on, why I can't get behind it. And it's like, you might think like, okay, so wouldn't you actually be all good for this? Because isn't this what you would rather have? And it's like, yes, I would definitely rather have something like this. But the fact that it isn't like what I have, just, I guess you could say in a way it makes me jealous and angry. And again, it's not directed towards the writer slash director. It's not directed towards Mike or anyone else who worked on this. Not at all. I'm not like going after the crew of this film or anything. But because of my personal experiences, it takes away from this for me. And I'm not saying that I want to see every movie like have a sour, like, I wouldn't call it dark, but heavy ending like that. I'm not saying I want every movie to be like that. It's just, again, it's just because of how much I connected to it personally that I cannot get behind the father just being redeemed this easily. And Katie just accepting it and almost kind of like acting as if she were in the wrong for anything, which she wasn't. Like with the way he acted towards her and treated her dreams and her passions, she was in the right to act as she did. And that's I think what gets me the most about it. The movie tried to act like both of them were wrong. It definitely showed that the father was in the wrong for the way he had been treating his daughter and everything. But it also tried to act like Katie was in the wrong and that she needed to give her father a chance and she needed to hear him out and she needed to see his side of things. And it's like, fuck no, she didn't. If he's mistreating her like that, she does not need to see his side of the story. Again, I want to make it clear, I did not hate this movie. I didn't even dislike it. This movie was very fun and enjoyable. But this one thing, just because of the personal issues that I have with my father that have left me in a really bad state at points in my life. The fact that even to this day he still misgenders and dead names me, for example. Purposefully doing it even when others around him properly gender and properly name me. Right around him in at the same time, pretty much. It's like he's actively choosing to do shit like this. And I'm sorry if that bothers me, but I'm not sorry. Because that should bother anyone. And it's just it's these things that make me unable to just come to terms with the ending because of that. And it does take away from it for me. It doesn't ruin the movie. Again, I'd still watch this again. It was enjoyable. It was fun. I'll probably check out different videos on YouTube, reviews, reactions, whatever for it. But that part definitely just, it's a personal thing. It bothers me on a personal level. And it's something that I can't just ignore because of how important it is in my life. So yeah. And the only other issue I had, again, a very notable nitpick, was the voice of the brother being just very clearly an adult voice. As I said in the reaction, at the very least, if you wanted to be generous, you could say he sounded 16. But trying to say anything less than that is, you're just fooling yourself. And honestly, I think he just sounded like an adult. And yet, again, as I said, a lot of movies like this will cast adults as the kids because voice acting ability and stuff. A lot of kids aren't necessarily always the best at voice acting and acting in some ways in general. But I think it's always, when it's this noticeable, it just takes away any level of authenticity. I did not view this character as a kid throughout pretty much any of the movie because he didn't sound like a kid. The performance was not that of a child. This kid is like, again, what, 8, 10, maybe 12 at the absolute most. And we're supposed to believe he sounds like that? No, I'm sorry. It's immersion breaking. And that's just a nitpick, I know. It doesn't ruin the movie. And it didn't even necessarily ruin his character for me. It's just, it made me unable to view this movie and see him as a kid. I could not watch this movie and see him as a kid. Because he sounded like a grown-ass adult. It'd be like Brad Pitt voicing a 10-year-old. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't fit. It would be so out of place. And the issue here is that some shows and some movies can actually get away with that too. Like, because Gravity Falls, it's like, Dipper doesn't exactly sound super young. He doesn't sound like a 12-year-old. He sounds like maybe he's 15 or 16. I wouldn't say he necessarily sounds like inherently an adult, but definitely a teenager. But it's like, Gravity Falls, because of the way the characters are done, because of the way everything's written, and because a lot of the characters in the series have weird voices, it works. And I'm using Gravity Falls as an example because the writer is from Gravity Falls and Alex Hirsch is in this as well. So, but like, you compare it to like every other child that's you hear speak in this movie, which is not many, mind you, but like you hear this, like you hear Katie as a kid, or you hear the neighbor girl of the Perfect Family. Both of them sounded like kids. I didn't question for a second that they were kids. But for some reason, this kid sounds like a fucking adult, and it throws me off. It's a nitpick again. It's not a big deal, but it is something I wanted to bring up. Um, the art and animation, I had no issue with it. I said in the pre thoughts that it wasn't my favorite, and but I haven't seen a lot, and that I'd wait to see it like in context and everything. And yeah, it was good. I liked the little like kind of things that kept popping up and everything throughout it. Um, Feels very much like a Lord and Miller thing at this point after Spider Verse and all as well. Um, the kind of little like drawing stuff that would pop up here and there. There were some recurring jokes with that, like the the I forgot what it's called, the Rick special or something. The thing that Father did with in the car. That kept popping up like every time that was done and stuff. The little graphics, the little drawings that would pop up and all, and like that was great. I love that. Outside of the brother, all the voice acting was really well done, and all of it really fitted the characters. Um, I had no issue in that regard, and I thought the soundtrack was unexpectedly great. Like the songs in it, like that they actually played, I was not expecting like at all. And there were some really funny jokes in it too. Um, there were some really funny jokes, some really funny moments. Just the Furbies in general. There was a lot of stuff in this that I did not expect to have like them actually mentioned by name. I guess they just got the rights to say them, like YouTube and Furby and shit. It's like, okay, all right. Um, but yeah, it's like the only joke I think didn't that really didn't work for me was the entire thing with the father being technologically illiterate. The only thing that kind of makes it work is the fact that they emphasize the fact that he is an outdoorsman by nature, that he prefers handiwork and hiking and stuff like that, nature, that he's not into technology. But the problem is that I've seen people who were not into technology figure out how to use a computer in no time flat. It's not difficult. Like it's not like you're learning how to code. Like yeah, that's going to be difficult and that's not going to make sense to people. But they dramatize it up so fucking much in this movie, like him freaking out and having practically panic attacks at entering a URL. It's like it takes it to a level it's just ridiculous. And again, I get that that's the joke, but I don't really think it works as a joke because it's so void of reality. The best jokes like have some realism to them, have some sense of like understanding. It's like you get what they are, you get what it's saying. But when it's a joke like that just does not work really, it's like it doesn't work because it's just so not realistic at all. It just doesn't, maybe just for my sense of humor and stuff it just doesn't work. If you found it funny, awesome, but I could I it just it wasn't funny to me. It wasn't a joke to me. Like it didn't come across as a joke at all. It just came across as dumb and unrealistic. Again, my grandmother, who's like in her 80s, fully knows how to operate a computer. Very well, even. Like she's not like a coder or anything. Again, nothing like that, but she can do pretty much everything I can do on a computer. I'm 30. She can do pretty much the same things I can do with a computer. Maybe just the tiniest, slightest bit of less. And it's like, I don't get it. You know? And maybe there are some people out there who can't. And the problem I'm also feeling here is like this dad is not like that old, right? Like, let's be generous and say he was 30 when Katie was born. He would be like, what, 48, 49 now? She's 18 or 19 going off to college. Like, he would be like 48, 49. Maybe, let's be generous and say up to 50. Somewhere right in that range, right? He would know how to use a computer. My dad's over 50 and knows how to use a computer. In fact, sometimes, in some ways, maybe even better than me. Even though he makes some mistakes, like have way too many tabs open constantly. But that's not really a mistake on using a computer per se, you know? The point is he can use a computer completely fine. He was using a smartphone before me and knew how to use it and still does better than I do. The entire thing about like parents or grandparents not knowing how to use technology and all is it's dumb. And again, there might be some people like that, but most people I've seen like know how to use technology when they're older. The older people at my church do. At all the churches I've been to. Just I've never seen, out of all the older people I've met in my life through all kinds of different ways, none of them have ever had trouble with technology. Not a single one. I have literally never seen this outside of media. And again, that's not to say it doesn't exist. I've also never seen like excessive bullying that you see in media in real life. I've seen bullying, just not to that level that you see in media. But I know that exists in real life. So I'm not saying that this kind of thing doesn't exist. I'm just saying that it's not as common as like you always see it. You always see it in media. It's so fucking common in media, and I just wish it wasn't. You know? I don't want to see it anymore. It's not funny, it's not entertaining, it's not a joke. Because it's such an outdated idea. And for the most part, is not accurate. And I know I'm talking a lot about the negatives of this movie. I know, and it makes it sound like, oh, Connie hated this movie. She's just talking about the negatives. It's just because the negatives stood out more. It's not saying that the negatives were necessarily overpowering all the positives of this film. It's just they stood out to me. And because of that, there's a lot more to talk about. With the positives, it's like, oh yeah, there were a lot of jokes throughout this movie, most of the jokes that were funny. A lot of great character moments. I like the interactions between the family members. The art and animation, the soundtrack. It's like, all of that stuff is very quick to talk about. It's like, snap, 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 I can't snap. I don't know why I use snapping as an example when I can't snap my fingers. But you get the point. It's like so quick and easy to talk about that stuff because it's like, oh yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. There's not much else to say. It was good. I liked it. But it's like the negative stuff, it's like there's so much more to discuss. I have something more to say. So that's why these afterthoughts seem so negative. When I want to, I again want to make it clear that while I didn't absolutely love this movie, I did very much like it. I did very much like it. yeah, it was a good movie, a really good movie. Not the best I've seen from Lord and Miller. Obviously, that's still Spider. What else have they done? Let me look that up real quick. Have they done something like any other big things besides Lego Movie and Spider Verse and this? I'm actually not sure. Oh, they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? I did not know that. That was a good movie. I like that movie. Okay, so there's another one that I really liked. They directed the live action movie 21 Jump Street. Did not like that and never saw the sequel. I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it. It's not my kind of humor. Um, Apparently they co-produced the TV series The Last Man on Earth, which is definitely something I've heard of but never seen. I think my father saw it. Um, and apparently they had something to do with Unikitty, which makes sense. That's a spin-off of Lego Movie. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they did. They were both involved in both Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movies, but they only directed the first one. I've never seen the second one, so I don't even know if the second one's good or not. Apparently, they were executive producers and uncredited directors on Solo, a Star Wars story, which is like that was a terrible movie, probably the worst Star Wars movie, not counting Holiday Special or anything like that. Uh, Obviously, they're doing the Spider Verse sequels and all, and it looks like they have a couple other things coming up. What about television? Apparently, there was an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine they worked on, and that one series, Clone High, that was Lord and Miller. Huh. I've never seen Clone High. I just know some memes from it. Because people post them occasionally. It's like it just gets a surge of popularity at some points and then just disappears suddenly. And then like years later it'll come back into the public conscious again. I don't even fully know what Clone High is. I think it's just about clones of famous people. I think that's all I know about it. Um, but yeah, so there's been a couple things that I really liked from them. Spider Verse and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs are definitely there. Um, I would say from a technical aspect and everything, this is better than Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. But I also feel like the negatives I did have for this, even if they are just personal stuff, also make me kind of maybe like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs a little better. Um, I heard this movie. A lot of people say it got snubbed out of winning awards and got like Encanto won when it should have won. Encanto was so much better than this. Encanto was phenomenal. This is just really really good. It doesn't stand up to Encanto. Um, and also the queer representation was a throwaway line at the end. Um, the mother simply asks if Katie and that other girl are official and if she's going to be bringing her home. It is a throwaway line at the end that it's like if you sneeze, you'll miss it. I don't count that as representation. I don't count that as queer representation. I mean, I assume they probably weren't allowed to put more in there. They probably were stopped by studio interference and stuff. But unfortunately, like it's too little. It's nothing. Again, if it's a single throwaway line that if you sneeze, you will entirely miss it, and nothing else in the film even slightly hints at it, then it's not real representation to me. Kurosami had more in the series than this did. Kurosami actually had a lot more in the series that was hidden in there because they weren't allowed to make it blatant. But if you actually paid attention, you would notice that, especially in all of books 3 and 4, there is a lot there for Kurosami. Excuse me. I would have just missed the queer representation with that cough. And again, making this very clear, I'm just talking about mostly the negatives here because there's not much to say with the positives. The negatives lead to more to talk about, so yeah. As unfortunate as it is. But, either way, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this film? Did you like it a lot more than I did, or did you also find some issues with it? And again, my biggest issues with this are personal, so I understand if not everybody's going to see those issues and everything. It's a me thing. I acknowledge that. But it's something I just can't ignore either. It's not something I can just push aside and enjoy the movie because it's like it's so in my face with it for me. But yeah. So tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you again to, I believe it was Venom? Let me make sure just to get the credit right here. Yeah, Venom. Thank you to Venom0027 for donating for this. And yeah, once again, just to mention to everyone watching, for the entire month of June, we are doing a special on donation rewards. If you wish to donate, any amount works. And instead of one reward, you get 2 for every donation. That means every time you donate during the month of June 2022, you will get 2 rewards per donation of anything you want. You can have me react to a movie, YouTube stuff, shows, whatever. Doesn't matter, as long as I haven't seen it. All is fair game. It doesn't matter what genre it is. It doesn't matter when it came out. As long as it is available, it can be brand new. It can be from the fucking 30s if you wanted. I don't care. I don't mind. Have me react to silent movies. I'm good with that. But seriously, like, anything is fair game. And it's only if you want and are able to. If you don't wish to, if you can't because of money issues or whatever, then don't feel obligated to. It's completely optional. And no matter what, nothing on the channel will ever be behind a paywall. You will always be able to see everything I react to in its entirety, no matter what. You will not have to pay for it. So, that all being said, thank you so much for tuning in once again. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.